Hi, this is going to be a short shiur about a short and beautiful and very deep Torah from the Baal Shem Tov, from the book Keter Shem Tov. It's Torah number 6, and the topic is decision making. In particular, what happens when we have a dilemma, when we have a choice, and there are equal arguments in favor of both options. There are pros and cons in each direction, and there are things you can see, it makes sense to do A, it makes sense to do B, and you don't know what to do. So the Baal Shem Tov starts with quoting Nachmanides. Nachmanides is, of course, the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, and he wrote a letter to his son, giving him the following advice. So the Baal Shem Tov starts with this advice, and then he goes on to give a very revolutionary Hasidic rereading of an important verse. So we're going to see where it goes. So it starts with the advice of Nachmanides, and he says to his son, if you have a doubt regarding a certain thing, a certain mitzvah, whether it should be done or it shouldn't be done, and there are drachim letzaded lechan ulechan, there are arguments in both directions, or you have a doubt if it is a mitzvah at all or it isn't, and if it should be done or you should avoid doing it. So we can see that for Nachmanides and his son, the main thing to ask is whether something is a mitzvah or it isn't. So first it starts with a mitzvah, whether it should be done or not, and then it starts with a deeper question, whether it is a mitzvah at all or it isn't. And we can expand this, right? Many of our decisions aren't so clear. The question we have in mind is not, is it a mitzvah or it isn't, or we have mitzvahs and we're not sure if we should do them or not. It's all kinds of decisions, but I think this is pointing us in the direction of asking ourselves if this is Hashem's will or not. If we're doing something, can it be encompassed or included within the broader scope of mitzvot, of doing Hashem's will in this world? And this is the question we should have in mind, just like Nachmanides is telling his son. So he's telling him, so if you have this question and you don't know if you should do it or avoid it, and what you should first do is in our language it would be take yourself out of the equation. He says here, put any kind of personal gain and anything that gives you respect or honor that makes you biased in this way, because biased in your own direction, that you want to be more famous or important or to gain something, whether it's something material or something points of honor. Take this away, take this out of the story. Try and not be yourself, or try to transcend your own interests and your own what you stand to gain from this, and then Hashem Yitbarach, the God, will tell you the truth, and you will be able to take a certain path, certain also in the sense of you'll be certain that it's the right path to do. You have to go that path, and Hashem will let you know, but you have to take yourself out of the equation first. So that's just a quote from Nachmanides. And then the Baal Shem Tov does something really, really beautiful, and that's really what we want to study. So first we have to look at the verse. He's taking a verse from Dvarim, from Deuteronomy, and here it is, that's better. So we're going to read the entire verse, although the Baal Shem Tov focuses on the second half of the verse, and this really could give us a wonderful tool, a wonderful idea of where to go with in our own lives when we have important decisions to make. So the verse talks to judges, and he talks to a judge about how he should try and be as objective as possible. So the verse says, "Lo takiru fanim b'mishpat," you shall not be partial in judgment. Lakir panim is to know a face, or to favor one face or one aspect of things in comparison to another aspect or facet of things. So don't be partial. Lo takiru panim. Kakaton kagadol tishma'un. Hear out, low and high, or great and small alike, meaning sometimes we're tempted to overcompensate or to do something like affirmative action for someone who's poor or disenfranchised or has been downtrodden in some way, and we want to give him more favor, and that's wrong. And the other thing that's wrong is to favor something that's greater, someone who's more important, and I could gain something, and maybe he needs special treatment. So the verse says, Kakaton, kagadol, tishmaun. We should hear alike, hear out, the low and high alike, the same thing. So that's also important if you want to talk about decision making, that there are all kinds of points of view. If we find ourselves that we're trying to flatter someone who's great, or a group who's now in power in some way, or things are going well for this group, or the other way around, we're trying to we're biased in the opposite direction of trying to fight wars for people who don't have so much power, and we're trying to help them out. This really destroys our objectivity. It makes us subjective, and we lose sight of the truth. And then he says, "Mipnei lo tagur mipnei ish, fear no man, ki hamishpat leElohimu, for judgment is God's." And then we get to the final part, the second half of the verse. That's what we want to focus on. והדבר אשר יקשה מכם תקריבון אליי ושמעתיו. And any matter that is too difficult for you, you should bring to me, and I will hear it. Any matter that's too difficult for you, you should bring to me, and I will hear it. So the first part of the verse is you trying to figure it out on yourself, and this is the advice that I'm giving you, trying to be objective and so on. But then you get to a point that's the limit of your capacity, and you don't know what to do. It's too difficult. Yikshe mikem, too hard, too difficult for you. Bring it to me. You should bring it to me. The original term is bring it closer to me. Come closer to me. Bring this case closer to me, and I will hear it, and then I will tell you. And we know that this is exactly what happened in the desert. Of course, this is Moses speaking, and Moses is saying, anything that's too hard, too difficult for you, bring it to me, and I will judge it. And we know from the sages, by the way, that this particular verse, he was punished for this. Moshe was punished for this because he was too presumptuous, saying anything that's too difficult for you, give it to me, and I will give you the answer. So this is why the daughters of Tzlofchad would later on beat him and ask him a question that he could not know the answer to. And the Chazal said about this, that because he was so presumptuous, and he says, anything that's too difficult, I can do this, then Hashem told him, oh yeah, so now I'm going to have women who in those times were not as educated as men, and it was a certain humiliation to be won over by, to be beaten by a woman in Torah study. And that's what happened. So those 5 women, those group of the sisters, Bnot Tzlofchad, they were able to know something that Moshe didn't know, because he was a sort of punishment or sort of counterbalance for this thing. So anyway, it's all going to be reversed now in a beautiful way by the Baal Shem Tov. So anyway, the second half of the verse says, and any matter that's too difficult for you, bring it to me, bring it closer to me, and I will hear it. Okay, so now we're going to see what the Baal Shem Tov does with this. So let's first just focus on this part. What's difficult for you, bring it to me, and I will hear it. And now let's see what the Baal Shem Tov is doing with this. So it goes like this. The first part, literally it means any matter it's too difficult for you. But it can also be read, because of the way Hebrew is structured, it can be read not as difficult for you, but difficult from you. So in Hebrew it's too difficult, more difficult than you. But every time we have this kind of mem that says more than you, it can also be read as from you. So the upshot is that we should read this verse והדבר אשר יקשה מכם. If something is difficult, if you have doubt, if you don't know what to decide, it's coming from you. The doubt, the sense of not being sure, it comes from you. From where? From your own ego, from the fact that you're putting yourself, your yeshut, that's like Hasidic for ego. You're putting yourself in too much into the picture. You're hiding the truth from yourself. The difficulties and the doubts, it all comes from you. הדבר אשר יקשה, it's מכם, it's from you. Beautiful way of reading this verse. And now, second part, תקריבון אליי. So תקריבון אליי means bring the case closer to me, but we can also read it, you come closer to me. Instead of תקריבון אליי, תקרבון אליי. You have to, if you realize that you have a dilemma, you don't know what to do, and you realize it's your own ego that's pulling you in one direction or the other direction, or is putting you in this state of doubt, and you have to rise above your ego, and you have to come closer to God, closer to Hashem. So this is beautiful, because the pshat was that Moshe said, you bring your cases to me. But now, this is all, so to speak, between Moshe and Hashem. Hashem is saying, well, why is it difficult? Why do I don't know this? It's because of me, just like he didn't know the answer to Bnot Tzlafchad, because it was too presumptuous. So what did he do when asked the question by Bnot Tzlafchad that he didn't know the answer to? He came to Hashem. That's exactly what he did. That's the whole point. That's what Hashem wanted him to do. He brought those girls to know something that he didn't, so that he would realize that he doesn't know anything, and he would bring it to Hashem. So here, closer to me becomes, instead of closer to Moshe, it becomes closer to Hashem, and each and every one of us is told the same thing. Instead of takrivun elai, instead of taking the question, just a question, and bring it to Moshe or to Hashem, it's you yourself, come closer to me, transcend your ego, transcend your interests, and remember me, and look at the world from my perspective, and try and be closer to my own will, and ask yourself not what you want, but what Hashem wants. And then the final part of the verse, Ushma'ativ, also changes. Instead of I will hear it, is I will make you hear it. I will allow you to hear it. Ushma'ativ, I will, it's like Veheshma'ativ. It can also be read in this way. I will make you hear it. So that's just a wonderful, beautiful reading, very basic Hasidus, of reading of a verse, taking a verse from the Torah and reading it in a new way, that becomes suddenly something that's not, something technical, legal, that you take a question, you bring it to a higher level of the court. It becomes something that we can use in our own inner work, in our own service of Hashem. If something is difficult, if we don't know the answer to something, it's coming from us. We are the problem. And then, what's the solution? Tikrevun elai, come closer to me, transcend your own self, be closer to me. If you become closer to me, which is also closer to the divine part within yourself, then you will be able to hear, sort of whisper of the answer. The answer will be whispered in your head. Hashem is whispering it in our head. If we do this, we come closer. So that's our short shiur for today, and something we can all use. Of course, the whole notion that there is a level within us that we need to come closer to, that's the Kabbalistic Hasidic notion of the Keter, the crown. All of these corona challenges that are surrounding us now, it's all about trying to be able to hear more, listen more closely, and hear the subtle sound of silence, the voice of the crown that's above our heads, and all the difficulties, all the challenges of the Var Asher Yikshe, all the different hardships that we're facing in this world right now, collectively and personally, are all that we come close to our own selves. And the Var Asher Yikshe Mikem, don't look at the outside world, don't look at the problem, look at yourself. The reason it's hard for you is just a reflection of something going on within you. It's all about you and where you're at and what decisions you're making, and once we've reversed everything and we're going from the outside into the inside, then takrivun elai, be closer to me, and then we'll be able to hear the answers you're looking for. Thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow.